Hello, thanks for tuning in. So, I thought I would talk a little bit about some of my general thoughts about astrology in relation to relationships. No pun intended. So, in astrology, we have, synastry, we have composite charts, and a lot of times when we look at synastry, for example, it really shows how the sort of energetic wiring of one person matches up, interacts, and affects the energetic wiring of another person. I've seen a movie called Past Lives twice. It's a recent movie. It's a very good movie. And in that movie, they talked a lot about the concept of people having karma with each other. And it's something that I'm kind of becoming more aware of lately. And in that movie, they actually, interestingly, they even mentioned about this concept of when you brush your clothes accidentally against somebody else's clothes, like on the street, you brush against each other. That is also an indicator of you having some sort of karma, like you've known each other in past lives. If you want to think about it in those terms, I like to think about those terms. Think in terms of past lives and things like that. Sometimes I won't lie. It's interesting to explore, and I think also from personal experience, I agree with that. And from personal experience, also, I think. When I, for example, see somebody a lot on the street or something like that, I keep seeing the same person everywhere. This has happened to me a few times, or I just have like certain interactions with people that seem almost faded. There's definitely, in my estimation, in my sort of belief, there's a reason for that, and means that there's some kind of connection that has formed over perhaps many lifetimes even. There was a person that I used to always see in the neighborhood, and you might think of this as like a coincidence, but I felt very strongly that there's like I had like this pull towards this person. It's like wherever I went, we kind of like bumped into each other, or we saw each other, and eventually we became friends. And that was something that I really kind of tried to make happen, and it happened. And later I found out that we have a south node and sun connection in the synastry charts. So my sun is tightly conjunct his south node. So it's almost like, if South Node has to do with what we bring into this life from past experiences, or even the past experiences that we've had in this life, whatever, if whatever planet is conjunct that will have a significant influence. So if somebody's sun is conjunct somebody else's South Node, it's like, there's that indicator of a past life connection, and it's almost like you recognize each other, and that you have something that you're kind of doing here together. And we have this with many people, and I do think that some people have more connections with people, so they have more karma with people, right? They have more things that they're dealing with and that they're doing with other people. So like my sun is conjunct his south node, and it became like this weird, interesting dynamic where, like from kind of early on, I kind of felt like he felt familiar. He felt kind of similar to me. I was like interested to like know about it, like his his daily life and things like that when we were talking and stuff. So it was like this bond was created in a strange way. And there's also other things going on like my Pluto is conjunct his moon and things like that, which is also a strong bond, indicator of a strong bond. But in general, the point is that I think, synastry can tell us a lot about how our energetic wiring is blending or interacting and affecting another person's energetic wiring. And I see this so often now. I'm so tuned into it now that I think that the relationships, for example, that I have in my life, I can't help but think about them as karmic. And it's like we chose to have a certain kind of energetic interaction together on this planet, right? It's very hard for me to see interactions or relationships with people lately as like purely coincidence. If I keep having a certain experience with somebody, or if I just have like a one-time interaction with somebody that seems very significant or is like very intense or strong in some way, then that, there's definitely a reason for that. It's very difficult for me now, having kind of studied astrology for a while and just thinking in these kinds of terms. It's very difficult for me now to kind of just see things as a coincidence. And I think there's something to be said about coincidences. But I think when your mind opens up through the use of astrology, for example, you kind of begin to see patterns, and you also begin to see like how things are connected and the meaning and the reasons behind things, and kind of like the sole purpose of what is going on. And it's almost like this thing about also, you don't want to get carried away with kind of getting obsessed with these things, but there's almost no going back in a way. Like if your mind has opened up to these things, it's kind of hard to just shut it down again and close it down for the sake of like, harmony or like other people, or because, sometimes it's hard in whatever environments we're in. It can be hard to be, the person that's interested in astrology or something. Because, for example, in my life, I think I have one person in my life, in real life, that I can kind of talk about astrology with a little bit. But she doesn't have that good of a knowledge about astrology, so I can't go like super deep with it. But everybody else in my life either completely rejects it, or just doesn't really have that much, knowledge about it, or just doesn't really care that much about it. But there are at least two people that I can think of, two friends in person, who just do completely reject it. But there's other people that just don't really know that much about it, and so they might be curious sometimes, and they might ask me questions, but it's hard for me to really connect the dots for them in a way, because they don't have a baseline interest in it, really. And so it can be hard when you're, the sort of person who's sort of going around thinking like, oh, I had this interaction and it's like meaningful, and it feels like it was like something that we are doing on like a purposeful level, because the other person might just dismiss it. Like whoever you're talking about this situation with might just dismiss it and say like, oh, it's just a coincidence, and don't think too much about it. But I think for me, it actually offers a more clear view of what is going on, and like a more well-rounded sort of a 3D view, if you want to call it that, of what is going on. So like if I have an interaction with somebody, or I keep seeing somebody on the street, or I have constantly certain kinds of experiences with somebody, or just somebody's very close to me, like I can't help now to think about those kinds of interactions and relationships as karmic, right? And synastry charts and composite charts can tell us a lot about that. Particularly, I'm interested in synastry, and I think a lot of people are probably more interested in synastry than composite. But the composite chart also has its value, of course, and I like to look at both. There's also other similar types of charts, like the Davison relationship chart, which can be quite accurate as well. But, and there's also different dimensions of our energetic wiring And so we each have them, right? So for example, your Pluto, is kind of your depths and your darker hidden sides, the part of you that wants to dig deep and bring something up and transform and throw out the baggage, the garbage, and start again. And so that might be combining with somebody else's Venus, for example, which is their love nature, which is their beauty appreciation, which might be their aesthetic sense, which might be their way of relating in daily life. So you can see how your Pluto, for example, conjuncting somebody else's Venus might mean that your Pluto energy is going on top of that person's Venus. So their love nature or their aesthetic appreciation or the way of relating to people, which are all Venusian themes, they might be completely transformed and overhauled just by interacting with your Pluto, because your Pluto is so powerful that it can completely overhaul that person's ideas about Venusian things, right? Or, if your Uranus is, square somebody's moon, that can mean that your erratic behavior, your impulses to start things anew and be creative in an intellectual way, be eccentric, all these Uranian themes, your need for new ideas, rebellion, that might actually conflict and create a lot of friction with that person's emotional safety and security, which is their moon. So if you're being erratic, just as a practical example, if you're being erratic, if you're being very idealistic or individualistic and kind of, I'm going to do my thing no matter what, and I'm going to break free and be weird, like Uranus, right? So if that is squaring that person's emotional safety and what that person's nurturing on an inner emotional level, which is their moon, if there's a square between them, that can create a very unsettling effect for the moon person, because what you do in your Uranian way is unsettling their moon safety and security. So if your Uranus is square somebody's moon or conjunct their moon, it can create this kind of instability in the moon person, because your way of behaving in a Uranian way, or your Uranus, whatever your Uranus is doing, is creating instability for the moon person, because Uranus can be this kind of unstable and sudden and electric and kind of unexpected energy, and moon wants to be kind of stable. So you see what I'm saying? So I think it's very interesting to look at the Synastry chart and to kind of, if you're interested in kind of going deeper with it, to kind of look at your relationships and your interactions, your friendships, and kind of think about it in those terms. So I'm planning to look at more Synastry charts for my own, with my own chart, and with people in my life, and kind of see how and why certain things keep happening with us. And if there's a lot of conflicts with someone, there might be something going on with Mars. So it's kind of we chose to sort out certain things, which is being expressed in daily life through conflicts, or with the case of Mars, with conflicts, or bickering, or maybe outbursts or something. So it's we're trying to sort out some sort of soul agenda issues through a very specific daily life interactions and a kind of daily life interactions. So Mars interactions in daily life can be very volatile, kind of impulsive, energetically kind of explosive, angry, competitive. So if you have a Mars influence with somebody that's very strong, then it's whoever is the Mars person in the Synastry, it's kind of they're trying to, well, you're both trying to kind of solve your Mars issues on a soul level through having certain kinds of interactions in your interactions with each other. Do you know what I mean? I hope I worded that okay. It's like whatever we came here, if you want to use those terms, whatever we came here to explore, or whatever we want to explore, even just on a psychological level, that will come out in the synastry through your interactions with people. So if you have like an afflicted Mercury, for example, you might want to sort out your communication issues, your negative thought patterns, maybe anything to do with Mercury, like your thinking, your thoughts, your communication style, how you take in and share information, maybe something to do with your neighbors or your environment around you, your neighborhood, just short distance trips or traveling, like anything to do with that you're trying to sort of heal, will be you'll be healing that and working with that through your interactions, with other people, that when their planets are having some sort of significant impact to your Mercury or vice versa. So if your Mercury is interacting with somebody else's, Mars, for example. So Mercury-Mars contacts, for example, can be that you have a lot of arguments, and maybe one person challenges, like the Mars person might challenge the Mercury person to, for example, communicate more effectively, or just be more fast in communication, or, like try to think on your feet better, like think quicker, and like tell me what you want. But when that person's Mercury is afflicted, when the other person's Mercury is afflicted, they might have a hard time with knowing what they are trying to say, or kind of talk faster, or be decisive, or there might be afflicted. Mercury might be somewhat afflicted. So, but then the Mars person might come along and kind of, try to push them into expressing themselves verbally in a better way, or something like that. But they might do it in sort of an aggressive way, or a hostile, sort of angry way, or they might just be having a lot of arguments with the person, just competitive nature, kind of. It's kind of difficult to explain, and I'm giving a lot of examples, but I feel like I could do more synastry videos to kind of discuss some ways in which some of these synastry aspects can show up. It's just about like interacting with each other, and like we see this happen all the time, that you have an interaction with somebody, and it just feels like you're deliberately trying to get something out of the other person, or the other person's trying to get something out of you, and that is actually your planets and your charts interacting with each other energetically. So there's always a deeper layer, at least that's how I like to think of it, that there's always a deeper layer to what is going on the surface. All the interactions have like a deeper layer to it. So if my afflicted Mercury is interacting in a frictionless, is that a word? Like a frictional, let me try that again. If my afflicted Mercury is interacting with somebody's Mars in a way that is not without friction, like for example, maybe there's a square between my Mercury and their Mars or something, or an opposition or conjunction even, then it's like, I forget what I was trying to say, but just think like, if my Mercury is in a friction relationship with somebody else's Mars, then it will happen that they might try to like bring something out of me that my Mercury is kind of unwilling to give in that moment, because if my Mercury is afflicted, then I might have a hard time communicating certain thoughts or something like that, or I just might have a lot of like negativity in my thinking patterns at the time, and the Mars is just trying to like push the person along, like, come on, give me something better, give me something positive, so it's just because they're interacting with each other. And so if that is happening in a daily life, there's always an aspect or a synastry aspect like that indicates that is going to happen. So notice how you interact with other people and see like what's underlying that, because you probably chose that. You chose to have certain interactions with that person because you're trying to, on some level, you're trying to sort out certain things. Both of you are trying to sort out certain things for yourself and for to kind of push the planet forward. Even if you want to take it further, like everything that we do has an effect globally as well, in the sense that, you know, everything is sort of, I mean, that sounds dramatic, but it's like our kind of micro interactions kind of affect the macro, right? So we're trying to sort something out, and there's a logic to it. So there's specific reasons why we have arguments with certain people more than others. You might have something like Mercury-Mars contacts, or, you know, Mercury-Pluto contacts, or if somebody always seems very erratic to you and it makes you uncomfortable, you just want to like be at peace from them. Maybe their Uranus is doing something to your moon, you know? So there's something underlying these things. And I can't help but think about it a lot lately. But yeah, this is longer than I was expecting and hoping. But I think I got some of my most prominent thoughts about this out anyway. And I'll see how I go. Maybe I'll be able to kind of talk more about synastry aspects and synastry in general in later videos or recordings. If you have any questions, do leave them down below. And if you enjoyed this, if you appreciated it, if you got something out of it, do leave a like and subscribe if you want more from me, because I will be making more videos. It just takes time sometimes. But once I've gathered enough thoughts, I can definitely keep doing this. So thank you so much for listening.